Greetings, my friends. Happy to be here. And this morning is also the last morning for this 4-week series on the Four Noble Truths. And as a conclusion for all this, and as a instructions for this meditation, I would like to say that sometimes there's the idea of that we have seeds within us. It's a wonderful metaphor. And in terms of the Four Noble Truths, we have the seeds inside of us for peace, the seeds inside of us for happiness or a deep, satisfying sense of well-being and ease. And to begin recognizing that seed and to begin watering it and tending it and letting it germinate and grow and become a seedling and become a full plant is one of the tasks of this practice. And in this kind of metaphor, we're not really importing something from the outside, importing teachings, beliefs, ideas, something, but rather we're nurturing and nourishing something inside that can grow and develop. And in terms of the Four Noble Truths, it's often we use the word suffering in terms of them, suffering, the cause, the cessation, and the way leading to the cessation of suffering. Suffering is a big word. Sometimes maybe it's useful to use the word unease, and that we're navigating our life between ease and unease and ease. And the possibility for ease within, that seed of ease, is what we're looking for and nourishing and making room and not doing it, holding on to it, but opening to it or nourishing it. And one of the ways to do that is to recognize any and all ways that we feel unease. And if we do feel unease, then to experiment with how to be aware of it with ease. That's where we can't necessarily fix or control or change everything that happens, but we can begin experimenting to see, can we hold it and be with it with ease? The awareness as it with ease. And with that awareness, maybe then we can breathe with what is uneasy. If the breathing is not quite the right place to feel a sense of ease, some people just rest the awareness in the body, and this wide awareness of the body can hold whatever is difficult with some modicum of ease. And if that's not possible, some people find it helpful to find ease in their hearing, just listening to the sounds around them. And there's where some ease is. And then with that ease, we can include within it what is uneasy, without needing to judge it or define ourselves by it or see it as a problem. But hold it with ease, and maybe then things relax. If they don't, what we're doing is nourishing the seed of ease, recognizing it, breathing with it, feeling it in the body, letting that become strong. So then for this meditation, take a posture that allows you to be alert with a sense of ease. Maybe that means to sit up straighter. Maybe it means to relax more in your body, in your posture. Settle back. And perhaps if the circumstances where you're meditating have some modicum of quiet, or you're being undisturbed by other people or in the room, maybe to recognize that sense of being undisturbed in the room you're in. And that whatever unease you have, there is a kind of ease in the undisturbedness of this, of sitting quietly. And then to see if you can take a few breaths consciously. I often say take some deeper breaths, but do some conscious breathing, a little bit more intentional. But see if you can do so in an easeful way, as if you're easing in to the experience of breathing. And with the breathing, easing in to your body. And then letting your breathing return to normal. And if there's any sense of ease in your body anywhere, feel that ease. Feel the relaxation or the quiet, that which in your body feels undisturbed or feels cozy. Taking a few moments to relax some of your muscles. Relaxing around your body, settling in teeny bit more to whatever ease is available here. And then become aware of your breathing. And if your breathing feels easeful, comfortable, enjoy that. Hang out with that. Be massaged by the breathing. And if any part of the breathing has unease, discomfort as part of it, see if you can be aware of that. Hold it within a wider field of ease, not making it a problem, but letting it be part of the larger landscape so that you're easy with it, at ease with feeling unease. And as we continue sitting here, if anything occurs that takes you away from the breathing, and there's any sense of unease with that, keep searching for how to hold that with ease. Just hold it in a field, landscape of ease, of not a problem. It's that capacity for ease. That's the important thing that's happening here. Gently, easily, easefully. Keep opening to where the ease is. The ease in the awareness of all things. If you become distracted with thinking, see if you can be at ease with that. Be easy. Look for the ease. And then let go of your thoughts easefully. Begin again with your breathing, with that sense of ease. So you're not regularly coming back to breathing. You're regularly beginning again with the ease of awareness with breathing. And slowly that ease of awareness, like a little seed that's germinating, can become stronger and bigger by the repetition, returning to easeful awareness of breathing. And then as we come to the end of this sitting, I want to evoke again the idea that there is within us the capacity for ease, for peace. And when we can feel a sense of inner ease, it's a lot easier to love. And when we can be at ease, have some ease with how we're uneasy, it's also easier to love. Not a few times, our capacity to love and our loving, our compassion, our care, can come with some kind of feeling of unease. But to keep opening to the ease, to keep holding all things from a place of ease, even if we're uneasy. And maybe that can be one of our gifts to the world. That to the degree to which we're at ease, or in touch with our ease, we help others feel at ease. And one of the gifts is to support people to be at ease with how they are, who they are. Because in ease, in being easy with how we are, all beings, it's easier for what's good inside of them to come to the forefront. It's easier for them to love, to be happy, to care. Coming out of this meditation today, in our wish to support, to help support and contribute to a better world for all beings, may we let our ease be a gift to help others be at ease as well. And in whatever mutual ease that there is, perhaps there can be greater recognition, respect, maybe even love between people. May all beings be at ease. So hello and welcome to this last talk on the Four Noble Truths. The last talk, this I guess is a 20th talk on this topic. And this can be kind of the concluding talk, the summary talk or something. And I want to start then by bringing up a statement that the Buddha made, that the Buddha teaches suffering and the end of suffering. And this very pithy way of really talking about maybe the essence of what the Buddha's teachings is about, kind of clears the air, kind of clears it all to point to just the essential elements of what this is about. And it's one of the things that we can kind of keep in the back of the mind, that all of the teachings of Buddhism, the practices of Buddhism, the way of life that Buddhism is supporting, is for this purpose to come to the end of suffering, end of our unease that we might have, or end of our distress and stress that we might have. And that with that as a guideline, that principle as a guideline, we then practice and live and reflect on our lives with that in mind. What I'm doing now, does that lead me to greater suffering, or does it bring me freedom from suffering, the end of suffering? Is this perspective I'm using now supportive to move to the end of suffering? Is this perspective, this understanding, this practice I'm doing, this activity that I'm doing, does it really help not just for the short-term ending of suffering, but really the long-term? And that's an important point, because some people are just looking for relief. And relief is not the same thing as release. Relief is temporary. It's just kind of getting back into comfort. It can even be escape from really looking deeply into our lives. The task of ending suffering requires us to look deeply in, to really be present for something, even the great difficulty we have. And if we're too quick to kind of avoid the suffering, the pain, the difficulties of our lives, then we're not really working for the long-term ending of suffering. We have to really kind of be present. And so these Four Noble Truths are I think putting that at the middle, at the center of Buddhism, I just really love, because it's putting a very pragmatic purpose in the middle of Buddhism without the need for a lot of other beliefs. There's no supernatural beliefs, no creeds and beliefs that you don't have to believe in, that seem kind of too foreign from what you're about. It's really, it's putting at the center of it, it's something that most people can identify with and most people can feel as a way forward or as a way of responding. That's not much different than if you have a thorn in your foot, you pull it out. That's a pragmatic, if you feel the pain of the thorn, you pull the thorn out. And there might be a little bit of pain at first to pull it out, but for the long-term well-being, it's good to pull it out so it doesn't, dig in deeper. And so the Buddha talked about a thorn in the heart, and that what he discovered with his awakening was that there's a thorn in the heart, and that thorn can be pulled out. And so, there's an activity, there's something extra going on within us that brings on this suffering that we contribute to, this thorn, and that it can be pulled out. We can come to the end of suffering. And I like to think of this as a very naturalistic form of religious life, in that it really kind of orienting itself around a very natural aspect of our felt experience, we can recognize this in itself. You don't need a big book on Buddhism or a PhD in Buddhism to begin appreciating when there's suffering and the absence of it, when there's unease and when there becomes ease. And to use that as a guide and to really look deeply. And these Four Noble Truths are these fourfold perspectives that help us with that task of looking at suffering and coming to the end of it. And it turns out that there are many different interpretations. Or maybe interpretations is maybe a little bit unfortunate explanation. Maybe rather than interpretations, there are many perspectives that different teachers, different people use in this 4-foot framework to help them look at the suffering and coming to the end of it. And these different applications, these different perspectives that different people teach about, probably worked for them in some degree. And maybe they'll work for us in some settings in our lives. And at certain times, certain perspectives are more useful than others. And I've tried in this 4-week series to point out that there's part of the context for understanding or the perspective for understanding the Four Noble Truths. A little bit depends on the state of our mind, or where we are kind of engaged in our ordinary life, that in a complex ordinary life of work and family or activities or whatever we're doing, that the very ordinary way of thinking is to look at cause and effect. And so sometimes we really spend a lot of time, why did that happen? Why did that happen? And rather than saying don't do that, that's completely appropriate sometimes. And we sometimes very deep insight, very deep relief, release, healing can happen by understanding a cause. And some people will journal, talk to friends, therapists, and really try to unpack what goes on until they find some really core thing that they see as maybe the cause or the primary condition that needed to be somehow unraveled and worked out. So the idea of that there's a cause of suffering, and then to help us out, to really help point us to something that where we have some ability to do something about, is to really look within ourselves. There are causes of suffering outside of us, but sometimes we can deal with them and address them, but sometimes we can't. But to really look at, what am I contributing to this suffering of mine? What's my role in it being there? Even if 90% of the cause is external and 10% internal, it's a very maturing, it's very liberating, it's very deepening process to go look at that 10%. Not to ignore the 90% out there, but this is where that seed of awakening, the seed of very deep peace and maturation of wisdom can grow when we really look inside. And so the tradition in this perspective will say, look at the craving, look at thirst, look at drivenness, compulsion. Where is that in the system? And then let go of it. Bring it to an end. And because it's difficult to do it, live a life that sets in place the conditions that allows you to be calm, settled, clean enough to look deeply into what's going on here. So that's, a little bit more the traditional understanding of the Four Noble Truths. A whole other perspective, which is really, really powerful current in the teachings of the Buddha, is to look at the conditions, to look at the ecology, the landscape of suffering. And this is where, as the mind becomes quieter and the mindfulness becomes stronger, we can take a wider look at what's going on. And so we're not just kind of caught up in cause, and caught up maybe with me, myself, and mine, you over there, and what you're doing. And we take it out of the realm of kind of over-identification around self with this thing, and start seeing that there's a wider field of conditionality, of conditions that are in play here. And we learn to work in that, engage in that world of conditions, shifting, moving, developing, letting go of conditions, and to help us with the overcoming of suffering. And this is a part of the developing the Eightfold Path, putting in the conditions that support this deeper letting go of the causes of suffering. And then at a deeper level, the Buddha teaches a lot about, especially in meditation, the tremendous value of being very, very still, quiet, vibrant, kind of very, very clear mind, and resting in this peaceful mind, and allowing the stream, the river of life, just to flow. So we see the inconstancy of experience, how it's constantly flowing and moving and arising and passing. And some of the deepest, maybe subconscious areas of holding on and clinging are best addressed not in the world of concepts, ideas, cause, even conditions, but rather at this very primal level of experience, at kind of the foundation of experience having to do with how moment-to-moment experience is flowing and moving. And any kind of suffering we have involves some way or other, some attempt to try to stop, block, hold on to, resist this flow of experience that goes on. And to experience it, and to experience that flow, and then to let go more deeply. And the deepest letting go is in this, this deep letting go in the field of inconstancy. And but to come to that quiet state of mind where inconstancy can be that powerful of an impact is to, is already to have let go of a lot, to be that still and quiet. So I'm offering them, I offered kind of 3 different perspectives. There are many other perspectives that for this 4 Noble Truths. And I'll end with what I said at the beginning of the meditation, that we all have a capacity for freedom from suffering, from the suffering that we contribute to the forces inside our own heart of conflict, of holding on, of resistance, of fear, of greed and hatred, resentment, envy, all kinds of things, conceit that we have, that we have a capacity for peace, for ease. And it exists in us originally, perhaps, as a little seed. And that seed needs to be nourished and watered. And if that seed is nourished and watered and given the right fertile conditions, it will grow into a beautiful plant. And this idea that what's in us is there ready to grow and unfold and move points to a very positive view of human nature, of human beings, our potential, that there's something really good and wholesome and wonderful here waiting for us, a process of liberating process, a process that moves us to peace. And so part of it is to learn how to create a fertile ground for it, how to water it, how to make room for this plant to grow, to get out of the way, how to let something which is a natural process move through us that's distinct from our personal, distinct from our personal efforts to make and do and accomplish and attain and acquire and all the kind of actions of the self, which is certainly okay in some settings, but there's something which is deeper than self, or some people talk larger than self, but there's something within us that's not associated with what we identify as the self, that we define ourselves by, that mostly we don't do, but we allow. And this allowing of peace, the allowing of freedom from suffering, allowing the possibility to become free to happen is kind of the whole point of the 4 Noble Truths. And this ennobling freedom that we all can do. So that's these teachings on the 4 Noble Truths. And in a few minutes I'll take some questions if you have, and try to answer, and maybe for the next 15 minutes or so. And in the meantime, I'd like to say that, yes, we're going to continue. I'll continue next week with these early morning sittings. And I haven't decided on the theme for next week. I'd like to have a theme for the week. And if I can tell you some ideas I have, if you please don't commit me to it. I think the top of the list is to do 5 talks on what's called the 7 factors of awakening. There were requests earlier that I teach about it. And the other is to do 5 talks on metta, on loving kindness. And sooner or later I'll do all of these, but I'll do something next week, starting at Monday at 7 here in California. So so how about the Eightfold Path? Yeah, so the Eightfold Path, as a little bit what I talked about this week, is in one of the interpretations, or one of the ways of understanding the 4th Noble Truth. The 4th Noble Truth is defined by the Eightfold Path. But there are other interpretations or other perspectives of what the 4th Noble Truth is. The Eightfold Path, as the 4th Noble Truth, is the conditions that enable the cessation of suffering. And it's a beautiful path. And so certainly someday we could do a series of talks on the Eightfold Path. it would make sense to do that next week, I guess. Maybe that's what the question is about, just follow up. And so could you please say something about the killings of so many of our African American brothers and sisters by the police? How does the Dharma guide us in facing these situations? I think that that the Four Noble Truths also apply in our society. And sometimes I like the idea that the Four Noble Truths don't have any pronouns associated with them. So sometimes what we want to do is actually turn our gaze and study the suffering in the world and really look at it clearly, be a witness to it. Sometimes the world needs us to be a witness for the suffering of the world, to not turn away from it, and use our capacity to have some ease with what's tremendously painful, to stay present and really see it and take it in and try to understand. And it might mean that we have our heart broken. I think my heart breaks regularly, and what's happening with the killing of African Americans in this country is so more than heartbreaking. It's just wrenching that this should happen. But to be willing to stay open and to feel that and to look at it and to become wiser by it and allow yourself to become different because of it. Allow yourself to become a better person. The more distressed you feel about what goes on in our society, the more important it is that you do something about it. It doesn't mean that you go to Minneapolis or something and talk to the police chief or whatever. It means that somehow in the way that your life is lived, that you learn something more about what's going on in our society so you can become changed. You do something that benefits people in this regard. It could be very small what you do. But if we're not changed by the things that upset us, then I think we're probably not free. But to be willing to look at what's happening, be a witness to it, take our time with it, and then be changed, and try to be an agent of change for one way or the other. There's many things we can do. So I've been meditating for many years. While my concentration has improved, my mind still wanders so much and anxiety arrives. Is this normal? I think it's best to consider everything normal, to normalize everything, because then it's a little easier to be at ease with it. And then seeing whatever's happening with you in meditation is normal, then the question is, given this that's happening, what is wise? What is a helpful way to go forward from here? And I'm happy that your concentration is improved over time. And so it might be that at some point when you're able to sit quiet enough and concentrated enough, what needs your concentration is the anxiety itself. And so then at some point when the mind wanders off, don't come back to the breath to get concentrated. Turn your attention towards the suffering and towards the anxiety. And that anxiety might need you. And one of the things I like to teach is you want to help your anxiety feel safe. You want to be able to hold it in the palm of your awareness and just let it be safe and not criticize, not trying to fix it, not try to get rid of it, because then anxiety is going to feel even worse. But rather to hold it, be a witness to that, and see what happens, and see what you can learn, and see what it wants, and really understand just by being with it. And sometimes anxiety and fear held that way will reveal itself, what's going on, and sometimes it'll just begin to relax finally. I'm being held, I'm being seen here. So I'm trying to follow these in order, if I can. I think it's a little hard for me, but this way maybe. Can you post the IRC oatmeal recipe on this site? I felt so taken care of at IRC. Well, that's very sweet. Those of you who haven't been to IRC might not know it's the teachers who make the oatmeal in the morning at the retreats. The teachers make breakfast and put it out, and so it's our job to make the oatmeal. And what's the recipe? Is I think it's a standard oatmeal recipe. The only difference, maybe from what's the box says, is be sure to put a lot of love and mindfulness into it. How do we know if we are practicing the right effort, with right effort? Previously, I think I was straining too much. So now I'm wondering if I'm not going too easy. Great question. This is the perfect question for finding right effort. Everyone needs to find it for themselves, and that's the question to ask. Am I straining? Am I trying too hard? Or am I trying too little? Am I complacent or too easygoing? And inevitably, people will swing back and forth between those two. Sometimes it's at extreme ends of them, the swing is, but as the practice goes deeper, it's narrower and narrower swings. But there's always little swings going on. And not that you're always looking at the question of what is right effort. Sometimes you're close enough, but then you kind of feel, and so this idea of tuning into suffering, tuning into unease, is actually very important help for meditation practice, because if we become increasingly sensitive to where the unease is, where the stress is, where the discomfort is, sooner or later you'll feel the discomfort of trying too hard. And you'll feel a kind of discomfort, a dissatisfaction that comes with not trying enough. And in this way we become our own teacher, and we make little adjustments to find our way. I am interested in how to apply the Eightfold Path in everyday life. Wonderful. So I'll think about maybe one of these weeks to maybe spend time on the Eightfold Path. And let's see. Yeah, so am I... not relevant for today's talk, but is there a permanent part within, according to the Buddha, like the Parisha or Atman, your view on reincarnation? Yeah, it's a very important and big part of, I think, some of the religions of India, is to this idea that there's a permanent, everlasting Atman, or kind of like a soul. Sometimes we translate it as self within us. And so the Buddha was very interesting in that he was very pragmatic, in that he was really only looking at what we can really see for ourselves and need to see for ourselves to become free of suffering. And I would say he was not that interested in whether there is or is not a permanent self. But he did have a teaching called anatta, anatman, and it isn't so much that there is no self, but rather in the world of experience, what we can actually directly know for the purposes of liberation. Nothing in our experience is that self, is that permanent self. If there is a permanent self beyond the realm of experience, I think the Buddha would have said it's not really that relevant. And so it wasn't really of interest for him. And so, with respect for other religions that do emphasize that, then we could look more carefully at those religions and see that there's a lot of similarities and a lot of ways in which these two different traditions, in some ways, are not that different. Even though one posits one thing and one posits another, they're all looking towards liberation and all have to work through many of the same issues to get to what they think is a liberated state. We become the ripples in the stream. I appreciate all these comments and this connection to all of you, and it makes it very rich to sit here and try to teach and feel connected to you. How can we best support you in your practice? Well, that's very nice to ask. Just you're asking that makes a difference for me. I think that I just am supported by the people who practice, and if you practice sincerely, that inspires me and supports me, and will support many, many people. That's really the best way that I can be supported. Is there a book from Bhikkhu Bodhi that you recommend? Oh, I think just about everything in Bhikkhu Bodhi is very, very much worthwhile reading. He's a great thinker, and I use his translations a lot, but his commentary on the suttas, his commentary on Buddhism, his reflection, he's a wonderful thinker and wonderful practitioner and really sweet, kind man. And so I think that it's always useful to read Bhikkhu Bodhi. How can the Buddha help me lose weight? Yeah, there was apparently a king in time of the Buddha. They were kind of friends, Pasenadi, who apparently was overweight. And the Buddha seems to have given him some advice, but I don't know what that is. And it's in the suttas. I don't know quite where it is, but hopefully mindfulness and concentration and this inner practice that we do helps us to have the right attitude and the right approach and right discipline for whatever's needed in terms of weight, whether it's losing weight or whether it's learning to be at ease with the weight that we have. So okay. So I'm sorry if I missed some of the questions here, but it's time to end. And so thank you, and I feel very fortunate to have this a chance to kind of unfold these teachings on the Four Noble Truths in the way I did. I hope it's been clear enough and helpful enough for this. And for some of you who don't know much about this, maybe it's a nice beginning to reflect a little bit about this very important Buddhist teaching. So thank you, and I look forward to perhaps seeing many of you again on Monday. Bye-bye.